Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday. It looks like it's the 7th of May. Doesn't feel like it if you look outside. So, let's tell some stories. I want to tell you about a course I took, I think it was 2017, called PLQ, Primary Leadership Qualification. It's the last bullshit course you have to do in your career. It really is. After that, you get treated like an adult. Kind of. Because the military doesn't treat anyone like adults. Everyone's wearing oven mitts and hockey helmets, gotta be safe, right? But let's talk about PLQ. So I didn't do mine in Gagetown. I was weapons tech, so I got to do mine in CFS Aldershot. Now, my grandfather was there in the 40s, and some of the buildings are still there from the 40s. The only saving grace of Aldershot, it's 5 kilometers by 2 kilometers, which means you're not running around all that far. The soil is sandy, so the digging's easy. So let's begin. I want to tell you, first of all, that the staff is all reservists. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just they have different standards than some other people. And they lack some experience of other people. So the course is broken into phases. And the first phase is online learning. So you sit home for 11 days in front of a laptop, drinking coffee in your underwear. And you have 2 screens open. One's Firefox, one's Chrome. Because you can log in twice. And there's a bunch of tests in there. And at the end of each section of the course, the online course, there's test questions. So when you go to do your tests, your actual test, you have the test questions open for that module. So you can't fail. You can't. Now, I'm not computer savvy. Some people are. I am not. My spouse is. That's what she does for a living. And so I get through that. That's not an issue. So then I have to go to CFS Aldershot in the Annapolis Valley, Nova Scotia. Beautiful area. They're known for pumpkins. And when I mean pumpkins, I mean in the fall, they pumpkin. There's a lot of incest in the valley. Area called White Rock. If you ever heard of the Goalers, that's where they're from. About 10 minutes away from CFS Aldershot. So, when you get there, it's called Mod 2. And Mod 2 is learning in the classroom. So you have to learn how to teach things and learn how to call drill and teach drill. You got to teach a sports class. You got to teach a weapons class. You got to teach something else. And then you have these missions where you have to go and do certain things. And of course, they have enemy force guys there. And they're the actors. They're the so-called enemy. And they're mostly Reg Force guys from Gagetown, a lot of them. Some are reservists, but most are Reg Force guys. Really good bunch of guys. When on my course, so Aldershot runs also basic military training. Morning, Jim. And with this basic military training, they're in the same building as the PLQ courses. And one of the enemy force guys had his Nintendo something stolen, or maybe it was an Xbox. Really sucked, actually. But that's besides the course. So, PLQ. You do some classroom stuff. And the weapons handling portion is really kind of interesting. Because you as the instructor have to have all your battle rattle on as you're teaching all this shit, your tac vest and stuff. No helmets or anything, but just tac vest and stuff. And a big portion of it is safety. Because people with firearms tend not to be safe, especially if they're afraid of such things. Or they don't know such things. And I didn't know there was a Gagetown in Michigan. Interesting to know. Sorry, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh, the safety. So at the end of the course, or end of that the lesson, you got to make sure everyone's has no. You use drill ammunition, which is silver colored. It's inert ammunition. At the end of the course, the class, you have to make sure no one has any. All their mag pouches are checked, and your mag pouches go across your chest. And this one young girl who was a clerk, who literally said she's going to suck her way through the course. She actually said that. And we're like, yeah, no. She tried to shack up with a buddy of mine. His name was Sean. And he was like, nope, not interested. But she found this young combat engineer in my course. And they were screwing like rabbits, even though they were both married, not to each other. They're both shagging like rabbits. That's a story for a different time. But so this young lady, she's like, "Is there any questions?" And we're all like, "Oh, trying to give her a subtle hint that you forgot something." She didn't figure it out. The battle vest. We started off with it was called webbing back in the day when I first started in the early 90s. And then we had tack vest, we call it. But so we're trying to tell this girl subtly to check her mag pouches. And we're like, oh. And she didn't get it. She's looking at us. And the staff's looking at us because the staff's in the room. They're like, they know exactly what we're trying to do, but we can't say anything. And just before she walks out of the class, 782 gear. Was that the webbing? Are you American or Canadian? I don't know. Jim. We had the webbing back in the day. So, and just before she leaves the class, the instructor's like, "Did you forget anything?" She's like, and we're all looking at her, and she looks at us. She's like, "Oh, check your mag pouches, everyone." And we're like, and we all check our mag pouches, and sure enough, she passed. Just passed. Nice to meet you, Jim. I love America, Jim. I love America. I think Americans are great people. I like the fact Americans are no bullshit sort of people for the most part. You have some screaming fucking lefties these days, but you can't have my abortion. Nobody wants your abortion. Calm down, you. Calm down. Stop aborting your kids. Use birth control. People are weird. Anyway, so PLQ, there's part of the course which is in the field, which means you're in the woods. And this course is never run in the summertime. Oh, no. It's always run in the fall and the winter. I did mine from November, December, January. It's like 9 or 10 weeks long. And the field portion's the best part because you lose most of your course. Half the people quit when it comes to the field portion. They are children. They're absolutely fucking. I've been watching the news. It's crazy. So when you get to the field portion, you have to march out to the field, which is like 2 kilometers, which isn't very far. And our staff, in those wintertime, the staff's like, "Oh, leave your winter kit on your bed in your duffel bags, and we'll bring it out." I've been around a long time. I know that's a lie. I know it's a lie. And they will tell you this, and you'll believe them, and you'll nearly freeze to death. So don't. We marched out to the fucking field, and my rucksack had to weigh 80, 90 pounds. And we're pulling toboggans. If you ever see Canadians in the winter, we pull these toboggans. It's 2 guys pulling, 1 guy kind of steering and pushing. 2 guys breaking trail. They are children. It's not fun. And of course, it's not in fields. It's through the trees and the woods. And it can be frustrating. So we get out and we set up our tents because we did have tents, Arctic tents. And for the first few nights, you're allowed to sleep in them. And then you're not. So we first get out there, we get the Arctic tent set up. I was the only guy in my section who had any idea really how to light the stove and the lantern. That's the only warmth you have in the field. I agree. So we get these tents set up, and then we start doing these missions. We do recce patrols and things of that nature. And fucking dogs. Yes, my dog is barking at someone. Hang on a second. Just bear with me. Never mind. It was just my neighbor coming home. That was a SWAT team. Because I've been threatened with a SWAT team to come visit me. That's the mean girl there. Old mean dog. Anyway. So we get to the field. Now, it snowed, it rained, and then it got fucking cold. So everything I have is wet and damp. So after a few days, you move into trenches. So we're digging these trenches. And you don't sleep much. You're literally sleeping whatever chance you get. And it's not a great deal of sleep. But I don't sleep much to begin with. So Yeah, it is. I don't sleep much to begin with, so I was okay for the most part. But it's in the trenches, and every 12 hours there's a new section commander. So everyone in the section takes turns being the section commander. And it was a good time. The two people who were shagging, can I say shagging? I don't know. Find if get banned again. Anyway, they had a tarp, a ground sheet over their trench, and they were having sex all the time. And the instructors came by one day and lifted up the flap and caught her pleasuring him. Now, it's really hard to keep clean in the wintertime in the woods, especially because a lot of your stuff gets frozen. I have a Jetboil, which is a little portable stove. I had that in my trench to heat my trench, so me and my trench partner were comfortable. But my baby wipes were frozen cock stiff, and it was really hard to keep clean. You ever try heating up baby wipes over a little Jetboil stove? It's not much fun. But it was a really kind of interesting course because you got to see how quickly people would break from the smallest things. I quit in my head like 12, 13 times a day. I'm like, this is horseshit. I'm not going to do this anymore. But I was like, nope, but I'm never doing this course again. So I just kept on through it. And that's what I did. So as the people are quitting, and I mean, people are quitting 3 and 4 a day, they're just like, I can't do it. They tap out. The sections get smaller and smaller. And then my trench, we inherited another guy who's an int guy, an intelligence guy from Ottawa. Really weird fucking guy. And so we take him into our trench because his section has basically disappeared at this point. They've all quit. So I'm making coffee one night in my little Jetboil. It's fucking cold, and you're all on, your all eyes are on stocks, looking at the trench, looking for the enemies. And he's like, "Can I have a coffee?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he was frozen nearly to death. I gave him all my extra gloves because he kept losing his. Yeah. Cold weather survival is not that hard if you plan for it, and if you have the right tools and equipment. I'm referring to Jim if anyone's asking about this later on. I'm not talking to myself. Well, maybe I am. Who knows? So I'm making him a coffee. And he's like, "I was told you're an asshole." I'm like, "Well, I am, but I'm not going to let you freeze to death. I mean, I'm making coffee. I'll make you some coffee. That's just kind of who I am." But yeah, this guy, we call them kit bombs in the military. Guys who lose their kit all the time. I had a guy lose his rifle one time on exercise. Couldn't find it. I found it. Fuck, people do strange things. But anyway, so come daytime, and we haven't slept now for about 3 days. You're just kind of nodding off when you can. Wow. They took your cold weather kit, Jim. Fuck. Quick side note. The best piece of winter kit the Canadian military has ever issued. Actually, there's 2 of them. In our sleeping bag, we have called a dream hood. It has these elastic bands you put under your arms, you put it over your head. You'll get the best night's sleep with the dream hood on. The second nice piece of kit we have, remember as kids you had those bib coveralls your mother put you on, and you put your jacket over it? The Canadian Army has bib coveralls for the winter. I was snowmobiling in Goose Bay on exercise, winter warfare, 2014, 2015. On this frozen bay, it's minus 30, and I was wonderfully warm. 2 really nice pieces of kit. Anyway, I digress. Let's finish this PLQ story. So, where was I going with this? We're in the trenches. Oh, morning comes, and a buddy of mine, his name is Derek Church, also an IT guy. He comes up to us, and he's talking in tongues. He's not making any sense. And then we're all trying to figure out if he's the one that's all messed up, or are we the ones all messed up? Because we can't figure this out because we're all kind of getting a little sleep fucked at this point. And he gets his orders, and off he goes. We're like, I'm going back to my trench. Now, at this point, I had to go I was in the machine gun trench, and we had what's called C6s, which is Americans call it the M240. They're called the FN Mag, or unfortunately, all the machine guns we had were broken because on this little base they have a civilian weapons tech who used to be an MWO weapons tech who doesn't know what he's doing anymore. At least that's the appearance I get because my machine gun was broken. They asked me to fix it, and I'm like, "Am I a student on the course or am I a weapons tech? You figure it out because I can't." Oh, those long underwear. I got some of those here. See, in Canada, you're able to keep your stuff that's close to your skin. So I kept my long underwear, some socks, a couple t-shirts. Those long underwear, they're the shit. They're pretty good. Hey, Jim, shoot me a message. I think I have an extra pair. I'll send you them. So I'm in the machine gun trench this morning. And me and a guy named, what's his name? Mercer. Good guy. Him and I are in the machine gun trench. And we're at the very far end of the section. Right, we're at the very end because there's like 8 sections out there. So we're at the very far end. We're on the far right extreme, and there's a tree line about 100 meters to our right. In front of us is this kind of field, some trees in the front, but they're not thick. You can see right through them. And there's a slight hill going down, probably 350 meters out. 5.56. Yes, equivalent to the M249. Exactly. We call it the C9. You guys call it the M249. It's known as the FN Minimi. The C6 is the 308, which is the FN Mag. You guys call it the M240. So I'm in there with the trench with the machine gun, and we have an optical sight on it. It's I think a 3.2 power optical sight on it. Why? I don't know, because machine guns have tracer rounds. It's a long story. Anyway, so me and Mercer in this trench, and we have what's called Arty Sims, which is they pull a little cord, it whistles, and then it blows up with a big flash. It simulates artillery. Well, there's some of that down over the hill in front of us. And so there's obviously a simulated artillery barrage, and usually that's what happens when the enemy attacks you. So I look through the scope every now and then, the machine gun, and I see this ponytail behind a tree, and I'm like, there's a woman there. And she's down in the trees, which is about 150 meters down in front of us. And she's standing kind of behind a tree. I look through the scope, and I'm like, fuck. What's she doing there? And then I see like a red shirt, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then there's a second person there, and I was like, what are these people up to? And they're in the training area, so I know they're not some civilians. Yeah, M60. That's a good piece of kit. I never used it. I got to see one. Colt Canada has one at their factory in Mississauga in Toronto. Nice piece of kit. So I get on the machine gun. I'm like, Mercer, I'm going to light them up. I was like, that's got to be the enemy. He's like, there's no one there. I'm like, dude, look through the scope. So I put the machine gun on target, and I kind of backed away from it, let him look. He's like, I don't see anybody. I'm like, they're there, man. They're there. And the Arty Sims are still going off. So I fire a burst, and we're just shooting blanks, not live ammo, just so you know. We're not executing people in tree lines. So I fire a burst, and the person doesn't move. But the entire section, everyone lights up at this point because there's contact front. I yelled contact front, I believe. I was like, contact front, fire a couple bursts. And the entire section lights up. One of the instructors came running out like, what are you shooting at? And I'm like, the chick in the tree by the Arty Sims. He's like, there's no one there. I'm like, are you sure? Because that was pretty messed up, but we all were. And that night I was back in the machine gun trench. I got night vision goggles on, and we have what's called PAC-4 lasers on our rifles. And it's kind of snowing, and it's cold. I got my little jet boil down between my legs, trying to keep me warm. What we do, cool. So I was dressed fairly light because I want to use my heavier winter gear when it gets actually colder. It was about -5 to -10. So not really that cold. And I was dry because, well, I was smart and I wore like good kit. I didn't leave all my kit behind. And so that night I got my little jet boil sitting between my legs. I got my raincoat over me backwards. So the hood's over my face. And Mercer's on the machine gun. He gives me a little nudge. He's like, I think someone's out there. I was like, okay. So he takes a jet boil between his legs. He basically makes himself a little tent. And then I get on watch. And we have these radios. I'm on the radio with the rest of the section. I'm like, does anyone see the guy with the dog out there about 100 meters? And on the radio, I hear, is he by the fence? And I'm like, the fence? And all I hear, someone else is by the house. There's a house out there. So we're all getting pretty sleep fucked. And now you're starting to see things. With night vision goggles in the snow, sometimes you get streaks or shadows. Yeah. We got some decent kit now, finally, after 40 years. So I got the machine gun. I got the night vision goggle. It's a monocular night vision goggle. And I'm looking. And the dude now has a dog who's about 100, 150 meters out in front of me. By the tree line. He's standing on the far right tree line. And at this point, I know I'm sleep fucked. So I'm thinking, there's no one there. But then the house comes out of the darkness and the fence. I wake Mercer up. I'm like, hey. Seeing shit. He's like, we're all seeing shit. I'm like, okay. So the staff leaves alone all night long. The next night, we started getting attacked. There's over the crest of the ridge down in front of us, there's a road. It's a public road. And then the enemy force comes through the tree line and over the fence, and then that's how they've been attacking us. So at this point now, I inherit a older lady in my section, because we take turns basically pairing up, just so you get different experiences. Gas mask, yeah. We were issued gas masks for our entire career. I just turned mine in back in January. I have an old one I bought at the surplus store many years ago, an old black one. Works pretty well. I don't expect to get gassed, but hey, you never know. I did use it to clean the rat shit out of my my shed because it stunk. I digress. So finally, this is like the last night we're out there, basically. We know the course is over in the next 2 days, or 3 days, really. But at this point, though, I'm living off Advil and haste. My back hurts. Everything hurts at this point. My feet are just a hot mess. I wear what's called Neos, which are like an overboot over my combat boots. And they keep your feet pretty dry. But the problem is your feet sweat, and then everything else gets wet, and misery comes quickly. And my little jet boil, I'm trying to fucking thaw shit out. We're getting pretty miserable at this point. And so I get this young lady. Well, she's almost 50. She's in my section. She's in my trench. And now we're being attacked. They're coming in waves. You'll hear like pop, pop, pop down in front, bit of machine gun fire. Maybe an RD sim or a thunder flash will come in at you. And with the night vision goggles, you can see the people coming. The range on those night vision goggles on a clear night was probably, I don't know, 200 meters maybe. Oh, the ones with the cheeks. Yeah, I've seen those. If you're wondering, I'm talking to Jim. So people are pretty miserable. We're all sleep fucked. I lost 9 pounds in 9 days, so a pound a day, but that's just because of the lack of sleep and the eating was kind of shitty. And so this girl's in my trench all night long. And the trench is dug like a real trench. It has the grenade sump, some overhead cover. It's deep. It's like, we use meters. So it's 3 meters long, which is roughly 10 feet. 1 meter wide, so basically a rifle length wide. And it's basically armpit deep. So we built a little seat into it because, well, I like to be comfortable. And we called those rubber boots rubber clumsy. Because if you read an NSN of anything, it's like, it'd be like shirt, combat, type 2 or some shit like that. So we call them boots rubber clumsy because they're just terrible to walk in. No one ever had a set that actually fit correctly. So the enemy's coming. I got a rifle. She's got a rifle. There's no light machine guns in the trenches at all. And we're firing. She's like, I gotta pee. I'm like, that's a size 39. So we're shooting. She's like, I gotta pee. I'm like, pissing the grenades up. That's what everyone else does. She's like, don't look. I'm like, I'm busy killing people. Gotta shoot these guys. You have a pee, I'll continue to shoot. But if you can load some mags while you're peeing, that'd be great. Anyway, she does her business, and we're back to shooting, and then she gets called off to do something, and my buddy Sean Andreas comes into my trench. He's a big, tall, lanky fellow, and that night the night before he fell into a trench, messed up his back, took him to the hospital. They assumed he was drunk because he was just sleep fucked, and they gave him some Advil and sent him back. But his back was a mess, and he's a big, tall, lanky fellow. So he's got the C9 in my trench now. And the enemy's coming in waves and waves and waves. And, he runs through all of his belts of ammunition. But you can also feed it off magazines. I can't blame you there. Yeah. The standard of some of the kit we had was lacking. The boots were junk, but now Canadian troops can buy their own boots, which is nice. And so we're firing so much. I didn't have a beard back then, but this was at the point where the Canadian military was first allowing you to grow a beard. So I had this beard coming in. It wasn't quite as nice and bushy as this one, but it was working on it. My face is black with gunpowder residue. Andreas, he's firing like 50-round bursts out of his C9. They're supposed to be short bursts. We had this term called son of a bitch. You pull the trigger, go son of a bitch, and that's a burst. That's what we used to do. Can't do that anymore because now we don't know what a son is. We don't know what a bitch is. It could be a female dog. It could be something else. No one really knows. I don't know anymore. So he's shooting. I'm shooting. We have one Thunder Flash, which is a grenade simulator. And these guys are getting close. And I'm like, you want to throw it in their general direction. And he's trying to light it, but he's so cold. His hands are shaking. And he just drops the fucking thing. And like, we are pretty much fucked at this point. I didn't have another day left in me. I didn't. I needed a break. My feet were like fucking hamburger because they were cold and wet. And even when you change your socks, the boots are so fucking wet that your socks get wet. You don't have enough time because they always have taskings for you. There's always something to do in the field. Always. Oh, I need you to move those pile of shovels 5 meters to the left. Okay. It's just to keep you busy and occupied. It is misery, Jim. I was fucking miserable. I am not a quitter. I've been through some crazy shit in my life, and I do not quit. But I knew I didn't have much left in me. There wasn't a whole lot left in the tank, if you know what I mean. And so now the enemy is just coming at us in fucking waves. And I'm like, our trench is littered with brass. Like, it's everywhere. And, at this point, I don't know if I'm hypothermic or not, but I had to put we have this fleece Cad Pat sweater thing. I put that on, trying to get a little extra warmth into me. The fucking jet boil's going nonstop, trying to stay warm. And it's wet and cold, and it's just shitty. But it was a sunny day. So you're like, morale improves, you get a little sunshine on the old face, eh? And so we're shooting. And the captain, his name is Captain Roach, interesting. For an officer, he was a very good guy. Yeah. When I first joined Jim back in 92, one of the winter rations we had was double chocolate cake. And it was part of the dessert of your ration. I don't know how many calories are in it, but I think all of them were. And that double chocolate cake would keep you going for an entire day. And it was only a square about this big. And it was gooey. And if you heat it up a little bit, oh my God. And I'm not a big fan of sweets, but if you needed the calories, that double chocolate cake would do it for you. Be running on overdrive. But just miserable. And Captain Roach yells, "Fall back to the rally point." We're like, holy fuck. Sean grabs his machine gun. I grabbed some fucking, like, we were taking turns firing. One guy was loading mags, the other guy shooting. That's what we had to do. Winter rations. Yeah, winter rations were a thing. And they were fantastic rations. We used to have pre-fried bacon. When I first joined in 91 or 92, we had pre-fried bacon. It was greasy. It was salty. You reminded me of something. So in the morning in the trenches, one person would run back. My nose is running. One person would run back, and we'd eat. There was the only hot meal you had. Everything else was in a ration. You'd run back to this tent set up in the back. You'd run back and you'd grab some food and come back. And every morning they're throwing out all this bacon. And I'm like, has no one here heard of pocket bacon? And he was like, what? So at night, one of the treats I had, every morning, the leftover bacon, you had to throw it out. I would put it in these little styrofoam cups, not like this, but a styrofoam cup. I put a piece of tinfoil on top, and it loaded my pockets full of these things. And in the middle of the night, I'd be eating like warm bacon. You'd smell warm bacon going through the trenches because I'd heat it up in my jet boil. Pocket bacon's a thing, and that kept me going. Thank you for reminding me about that. Pocket bacon, love it. Anyway, so he's like, fall back. We're grabbing our kit. We're running down through the trench lines like fucking mad people. I can't say madmen because we had women with us. And he's like, okay, get your rucksack on, get your toboggans. We're going to move 500 meters to the rear. And I'm like, I don't think I have 500 meters left of me. And we're putting all of our shit on. He's like, and X. I'm like, oh, thank Jesus. Refused by Ethiopians. Yeah. We had some pretty. The worst ration the Canadian military ever had was eggs and peas. It was probably issued for about 2 years because they change their rations up every few years. It was like, it was egg, ham, and peas and an omelet. And it looked like someone vomited into a foil bag, and that was your food. And I never ate one, period. The smell, guys would open it, I'm like, oh, Jesus, man. Horrendous. We had cabbage rolls once. They were really good. Missed those. Some hot sauce. That was the shit. But we do have a hamburger in our rations. If you just figure out how to get a slice of pizza and a beer in there, that'd be the cat's ass. But so yeah, he yells Index, and then they had this big spaghetti. Well, I guess it was a lunch because it was around lunchtime. Big spaghetti lunch for us. And we got to just slow right down. And, you get to take care of your stuff, like your feet. A lot of people are having feet issues at this point because in a trench in the wintertime, it's hard to keep your feet warm and dry. It really is. Oh, Jim, they were delicious. I do miss the cabbage rolls. I've tried to make cabbage rolls myself, but now I make something called a Southern Spicy Cabbage. It's a thing I do. Take some cabbage, some sausage, some bacon, fry it up, put some what's it called? Old Bay in there, some hot pepper flakes. I throw some peppers, red and green peppers in there, and kind of fry it up. Delicious. So yeah, we finally get back to the base, and you clean. First thing you have to do is clean your weapons. Always weapons. Weapons have to be clean. So we spend a few hours cleaning our weapons. And we get to turn them in. So I'm no longer hindered by this fucking rifle. And then we get to have showers. And I went in and I stood in the shower. And if you've ever been to like a big gym, it's the same thing. You go in, there's all these nozzles on the walls, and you're just standing there soaking. And Andreas comes in, he's like, holy fuck. I'm like, yeah. Yeah. He was like, my feet are fucked. I had to go to the MIR later on and get my feet checked out because they were pretty gnarly. Anyway, so we're gonna have a shower. I go back to my room, flop on my bunk, and I'm like, you know what? I was still cold and I still felt dirty. So I went back to the shower, and who was still in there? My buddy Sean, just standing there. He's like, this is horse shit. I'm like, yes, it is. But that was pretty much the end of the course. And then it was just some admin and stuff. I do want to give you an interesting tidbit. The warrant officer, I think his name was O'Neill. He was a military police officer reservist. A person couldn't find their PAC-4 laser. So they wanted to search our vehicles. Now, one of the guys on my course, Aubrey, he was National Investigation Service, part of the MPs. And the warrant's like, yep, shake out your rucksacks. Next, we're going to check your cars. And he stood up. He's like, listen, this is Aubrey. He's like, warrant, I'm still a military police officer, and you cannot search people's vehicles without a warrant. If you do it, I will place you under arrest. And the warrant's like, oh, okay. Sorry about that. Sorry. This is the shit the Canadian military tries all the time. They don't know the rules and regulations, so they just try it. Yeah, that's how my mother made it, Jim. That was the shit, eh? Usually warrants are cool. This guy was living out his heydays as a reservist. And the best warrant officer I had actually was a guy named Ford Baker. Good guy. Really good guy. One of the few leaders I could actually count. I could count how many leaders I had in the CF on one hand. I did 23 years. The amount of leaders I had, one hand. So, let's see. Kyle Spindler, Patrick Nadeau, Ford Baker, and Mark Pelche. Bam. I had 4 leaders in my entire 23 years. That's it. Everyone else was a careerist. Who we had a captain when he first showed up. I was with the engineers at the time. We had a captain when he first showed up. He literally told us, "I am here. I joined the military because I didn't know how to start at the bottom of an organization." He wanted to be middle management and start from there. He was very open and adamant about that. We were stepping stones for his career. And he's a piece of human garbage. He's one of the biggest pieces of human garbage I've ever met. He's actually one of the guys who tried to have me accused of terrorism. I actually have the email where he sends it to the higher chain, to my lieutenant colonel, saying, "How can we have Jenkins charged with terrorism?" I have that email. Well, my lawyer has that email. So, but this is the quality of leadership the military does have, the CF has. Now, this is just my own experiences. I'm sure there are some really great leaders out there, but in my experiences, I didn't have many. I really didn't. It's unfortunate, really. I know a lot of really good guys. Last year, the Canadian military lost 10,000 people. Now, there's only about 65,000 people, period, in the Canadian military. That's it. But 10,000 left. Another 4,000 left already this year. But they can't wrap their heads around that. Butterbear. Is that one of those Butterfingers? Butterbear. Oh, a Butterbear. Your rank. Sorry about that. Okay, I thought you were talking about the chocolate bar for a second, but no, it's you guys wear your ranks like that. Can't imagine why. Yeah. Jim, the Canadian military has gone so woke now you can have purple hair. And in your signature line on your emails has to have your pronouns. And I've seen some pretty strange pronouns. And some folks may realize that most military members are more conservative leaning, or as they call them, right-wing leaning. Because being willing to die for your country is not something the average person wants to do. And it's a big leap of faith to have that much trust in your leadership if they're going to send you off to die, that to trust them. And it's not really for the Kool-Aid colored people's hair. Those people tend not to do so well. It's yeah. So to finish up PLQ, my section in PLQ was the only section not to lose anybody. We had great morale, and our instructors came around on graduation day. Sorry, there's a giant hair there I can see it reflecting. It's crazy. Our staff came around on graduation day of PLQ, and it's like, Jenkins, you have no gaff, which is give a fuck factor. I have none. I didn't care. My goal is to get through every day, and that was it. But I have a crazy sense of humor. I brought my clown nose. You might have seen some clown videos online, and I have my clown nose. I had my clown nose in the field because I can't take shit seriously. I can't. I just can't anymore. Through my life experiences, I'm kind of jaded. And but he's like, you're great for morale. I'm like, yeah, I know that. And we had my course party at my place, at my house, because I don't live that far away from Aldershot, really, in the grand scheme of things. And I got a pretty big house for 2 people. And I got really kind of drunk, like passed out in front of the wood stove drunk. And I guess the guys and the girls in my section were telling my spouse that they're like, Tony got us through. And she's like, what? He's like, he was just funny and, kind of motivating. And I was kind of flattered by that. And I was like, thanks, everyone. I appreciate that. The only person I didn't like was the combat engineer guy in my section because he wouldn't do anything without his little ground sheet, we'll call her. Ground sheet? Yes. Field mattress, maybe, but they wouldn't be separated. Like, hey, I need you, and you to go on patrol with me. You three stay in this section, stay in the trenches. He's like, nope, she has to come with me or I can't go. Okay, grab a machine gun and the radio. You're grabbing all that. You're going, oh, I can't do that. Well, you're not coming then. But we had a buddy of mine, Charlebois. We called him Charlie Boy because that's kind of how it's spelled. Really good guy. And I used to take him and Andreas when we were doing recce's and stuff because we were quick, we were quiet, and we were good at it. My land navigation is yoga mattress. Yeah. My land navigation is really good. Charlebois was fantastic on the radio. And Andreas was great on the C9. And so we had to do this recce. And it was only like 900 meters away was the point we had to go recce. So I take my bearing, check my map. I'm like, let's go. And the instructor, of course, is with you the entire time because he's evaluating you. Your communications, we got our little radios. And like, so you have this radio that goes across your head. You have a little mic. And the radio is basically in your pocket. It's not very big. It's a little patrol radio, but this big. And the range is probably 400 or 500 meters on it. It's fairly short. But for in the section or a trench line, it's fantastic. And we're going to do the recce, and we get there before the enemy even shows up. We're supposed to recce this building. So we're in the tree line. We're taking some notes, drawing a little map. And this dude shows up with a truck, gets out and cocks his rifle. Now, I guess he was expecting us to react to it. But we didn't. So I finished the information I had to take, and we started heading back. And then my instructor, his name was Grant, Master Corporal Grant, throws an RD sim at the guy. I was like, oh, we're under artillery attack. So, we get the fuck out of there. And, we do what's called a rally point. I worked with this Polish guy at the engineers. He had to be 7 fucking feet tall. His head was fucking huge. Hell of a good guy. I'm terrible at names too. His first name was Michael though. Really, really good guy. Yeah, a good buddy of mine, Machi. He's Polish. I can't pronounce his last name either. Probably spell it, but I can't pronounce it. So we're heading back, and the enemy was supposed to ambush us on the way back. Well, the problem was they were facing the wrong direction because they're expecting another section to come by first. Well, we're actually ahead of schedule at this point. And the instructor's like, oh, we're going to take a smoke break. And I'm like, none of us smoke. And he's like, He's like, I will take a smoke break. And I don't think he smoked. So basically, we were ahead of schedule for the ambush. And yeah, probably. Oh, names are huge. So, we're taking like 10 minutes. And then he's like, okay, let's get going. So we're heading back into a little ridge. And we see this dude on top of the ridge. And all I hear is Andreas. He's seen him. He was at the C9. He was in front of me, basically. He was my point. And I was in the center, and Charlebois with the radio was right behind me. And Andreas seen this guy on top of this little ridge. And he's only about 30, 40 meters in front of us, which is basically the same as yards. And he's like, contact front, and fires a 200-round burst, because the belt holds 200 rounds, at this dude on top of the hill. So they're kind of surprised to hear us. And then Charlebois lighting up. He gets on the radio, does a contact report. Or actually, he gives me the radio. And, I do the contact report. He's holding the radio, giving me some fire. And it was pretty good. And then afterwards, they come down off the hill like, oh, yeah, we didn't expect you guys. We're a little early. We're like, but we lit them the fuck up. If that was the enemy, they'd all be dead. But yeah, it was a good course. Met some really interesting characters. We had people who'd quit over nothing. Literally nothing. They're like, oh, I'm tired. And they'd quit. Yeah, here I'll spell you his name here. Hang on. I think I'll spell this correctly. Hang on. I think that's how you spell Charlebois. Don't quote me on that, but we called him Charlie Boy. You can see why. But yeah, the course was interesting. I'd never do it again. I thought a lot of the leadership we had on the course was weak. Captain Roach was probably the strongest leader we had there. And he was just a weird guy. But he was weird in the sense that he got the job done. He wasn't weird that we caught him wearing a dress or anything, because that's... I could tell you a story about the time we caught a leader wearing a dress, and it was awkward for everyone. So, but yeah, no, I would never do that course again, never. And the other thing I had with me that made a huge difference was called a stealth suit, which is a Gore-Tex jacket and pants combination. Our rain gear in the military, Canadian military, might as well be a fucking sponge because it just soaks up water. Yeah, we've had a few over the years. I had an instructor when I was on my tank course. I took my tank course around 2010. Leopard tank. Now he was at the weapons school, but he wasn't on the tank course itself. And he was a sergeant. I knew him when he was a corporal many years ago. And then he transitioned. Now, Roach is a Newfoundlander. He's actually a pretty good guy. I knew another Roach named Manuel Roach many years ago. Good guy, Newfoundlander, fantastic people. Research Newfoundland. Wonderful people, interesting culture. Big part of Canada, I think. Big part of the military for sure. Manuel Roach. But yeah, we had this instructor. I knew him as a corporal many years ago. And then I met him as a sergeant. And he was transitioning, if you know what I mean. And he'd wear a wig, and that'd be about it. And he'd use the women's bathroom, and he'd pee like a man facing the toilet. And we had a young lady on my course, and her name was Teresa, who came out of the bathroom one day in a blind panic. And she's like, do you guys know the sergeant I think is a man? We're like, yeah. She's like, why is he in the bathroom? I'm like, because he's transitioning. So she is allowed to use the women's bathroom. Yes, probably yes, water dog. Yes. Oh, yes, nice water. Sorry. You're talking with the dog, Newfoundlanders. My neighbor has one named Phelan. Great dogs, actually. Fantastic dogs. Sorry that I talked with the sergeant. But yeah, the sergeant, I think, still had all of his bits and pieces. But he wore a wig and he was considered a woman. So, but the young lady in my course was extremely freaked out. Extremely freaked out. She was not a fan. Yeah. So the Canadian military has gone to hell. And not because of the whole transitioning thing. It's just because scandal. We just had a Canadian general captured in Ukraine. Now, they say he retired earlier in the month, but legend and rumor has it that he didn't. That was a story if he got captured. And it's funny, there's not much in the news about that now. Very little in the news. The Russians, they had a little of the Russian news, like, oh, we captured a Canadian general. And everyone's like, what? Oh, no, he's retired. He retired. Fuck. You can't make this shit up. You just can't. It's you just can't. Fuck. Oh God. Anyway, I need another cup of coffee. It's only 10:30 here, 10:23. I might be back later. Do some ranting and raving on the internet, on the interzones. Anyway, I want you guys to have a good day. I'm going to have a great day. If I remember anything else about PLQ that really stands out, I'll definitely update stuff. I know my Roe versus Wade video has angered some people because when that decision was made, people were lied to. She wasn't a victim of rape. There was many things. Actually, I have a video where she admits that it's all lies from PBS back in the 80s. I'm going to upload it. I'm on the East Coast, Jim. I'm in Nova Scotia. I live in the beautiful Annapolis Valley. I don't know if you can see. I do have my Canadian flag hung upside down. You can't. There's so much reflection coming off that window. But it's a beautiful day here. There's still no leaves on the trees, but I maybe have to be able to mow my lawn for the first time this year. Help my neighbor out because his lawnmower shit the bed. So I'm in beautiful Nova Scotia, Jim. Everyone come down and visit. You're more than welcome to. It's a beautiful area. It's a big farming area, but we're also on the ocean. So fresh seafood, fresh produce. My girlfriend's family's coming down the May 2 for a long weekend. And her dad's like, get me some lobster. Every time he comes down here, he buys like $200 worth of lobster. And then my house reeks of lobster. You're in Michigan, right? Okay. Yeah, my girlfriend's father's going to come down. He's going to eat like $200 worth of lobster. I'm going to take her brother to the gun range, do some shooting. And not that I own any guns anymore, but he does. And I'm still a member of the gun range. So, yeah. Anyway, you folks have a great day. Jim, take care of yourself. You're like my top guy. Because no one else besides you, I think CSIS watches me, the RCMP, mostly because of the flag in the background. For some reason, they think that's some sort of weird separatist flag, but actually it's a meme. It's based on a fake country that never exists. 4 lobsters. Jim, I shit you not, last July, maybe it was June, lobsters were $6 a pound here. $6 a pound. And the average size of lobster is like 1 to 2 pounds, because anything bigger than that, it's like eating an old shoe. When I lived in Ottawa, which is based just north of you, really. I'm not sure where in Michigan you are, but kind of north of you. I bought 4 lobsters one New Year's Eve. This was years ago. And it was well over $100 for 4 lobsters. And I was floored by that. And they were like eating an old shoe. And that's why I'm kind of happy being the East Coast, because I like seafood. My local lobster truck is so the natives have fishing rights, and they also run a little lobster pound, and they have like a seafood truck that goes from town to town to town selling fresh seafood. And that's where I always get my seafood from, because it's fresh. They fish it in Margarettsville, which is just over the hill from me. Wonderful people, great seafood, fantastic prices. So if you like seafood, Nova Scotia is kind of the place to be. So anyway, I digress. This coffee's now cold. I really need another coffee. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys another time. Just remember, don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things. And life will be tickety-boo.